Gregory Mahalik, FTH212, March 31st. This is our week 2, module 2 submission. First and foremost, we want to make sure the firearm is free and clear. I can visually check and physically check the chamber as well as we can see through the magazine well daylight. There's no source ammunition in the firearm. At this current time, the firearm is safe to handle and safe to operate. Safely describe the process, prepare and assembly process. First, foremost, safety glasses. Those are apparent when we're mixing with anything with firearms, especially we got to be pushing roll pins and punches out as well as messing with springs. We don't want anything to fly up and obstruct our vision, hurt our face. Good shop lighting is critical as well for safe operation. If we're trying to do something in the dark, or poor lighting, shadows can visually obscure what you're doing and cause difficulties. A couple other things I consider as safety required items anytime we're working on a firearm is headspace gauges. We want to make sure that we have a sufficient headspace for live fire. As well as I also like to check multiple magazines as well as dummy ammunition to ensure that we have a good operating firearm. Rolling right into how we prepare for this, the assembly and disassembly and repair the firearm. I've got multiple parts trays that are off camera that I put my sub-assemblies and group my components into. Helps keep everything organized as well as it helps when we're going back to repair it. We will disassemble it one way as we repair. We come back in the same direction and rebuild that firearm and reassemble it. As I get done with each tray, I put them back on the shelf where they belong. That way, if somehow when I get balls or something, stuff doesn't get mixed up. Rolling in the tools we used. Of course, we get 2 different hammers for roll pins and drifting our sight in, as well as we have brass punches and regular steel punches, using the correct size punch for the purpose, brass for drifting that sight. We have our channel liner installation tool as well as our front sight installation tool. Tools that would have made it easier if this would have been in before I assembled the firearm, instead of having to tap on that rear sight, could have just, in a slight easy control method, turned the sight and pushed it in or pushed it out. Also, tool I used for the assembly was a micrometer. Used the back tang on it down here to make sure I had my sight evenly drifted across, and adjusted the sight as I needed to make sure we had sufficient space on each side. Then we know the center of that sight is in line with the center of the bore axis. Going into evaluate readiness. Readiness to perform work like this in the future. I've got a great workbench right here. It extends down onto my right side, left side of the camera. I've got some other stuff in the shop that I need to finish cleaning out and getting better organized. Once my FFL is granted, this will be dedicated only for FFL activities. Is it my ideal setup? No. Does it work? Yes. I would like a little bit wider shop with a little bit more of a kind of a storefront. I've got a door behind me off on this right wall. I might have to build a little bench when customers come in. It's going to be a small area for them to come in, but it's going to be by appointment only, so I'm only going to have 1 or 2 people in here at a time. It's not going to be a solid walk-in store with set hours, mainly doing gunsmithing and or FFL transfers. But it gives me space to grow, learn, become better, and in the future grow into a better space that I want. So rolling going into 4 of part 1, we have dummy ammunition and magazine. At this point, we're going to do our functions check of the firearm. Like to insert my magazine, give a good tug on it, make sure that the magazine release works as well. If you want to check any of your safeties, so we'll pull the top part of the trigger, making sure that our little tang down here on the bottom part of the trigger shoe hits the frame, does not allow the striker to fall, and does not allow the trigger rearward travel. We will properly do a trigger squeeze, and the trigger should fall forward. We can then reset that trigger. As well as the mag catch. I also like to make sure the slide lock works. Make sure we can release the slide lock with our hand. I also like to go ahead and do a dry fire, hold the trigger to the rear, charge the firearm, release the trigger, make sure I feel and hear that audible reset click. So we'll fire again. I'll run this through a couple iterations. Most of the time we don't use a firearm, we don't just shoot one time. It's going to be multiple rounds in succession. Go ahead and reset that trigger. I'll insert the magazine, again do another little tug on it. We will chamber around, which is our feeding cycle operation. We then pull the trigger, conduct our firing operation. Slide will come back. Extraction, ejection. We have now fed and chambered a new round. Trigger has been reset. We have again fired. Ejected, extracted, fed and chambered, fired. We have last round holdback. Magazine falls freely. Slide locks, firearms unloaded and safe to use. And that concludes our functions check of the PSA dagger. I have a cleaning rod right here with the plastic end cap on it, and this is to keep the threads of the cleaning rod from damaging internally in the barrel and the chamber, as well as from damaging the threads on the cleaning rod. I will insert that all the way until I conduct the breech face. Take a Sharpie. We will mark the cleaning rod. At that time, we will then remove the cleaning rod from the firearm. We have our mark on there. Use a ruler or micrometer. I got a micrometer here. We're going to zero it out. Make sure that we're in inches because I want to measure inches. I don't have to measure millimeters and convert it. We're going to then take our cleaning rod and measure from the end of it that contacted the breech face to the mark on our Sharpie. I want to pull the firearm up out of our area. See, we got 3.9. Looking on PSA Dagger's website, or on PSA Arms for the dagger, the correct measurement is 3.9 for the compact. So we know we have the original barrel or a correct size barrel, that we are not messing with a firearm that has a longer or shorter barrel that a customer could have at some point swapped out and changed. Part 3, conduct an outside research, articulate how the twist rate in shorter barrels may differ from twist rates found in longer barrels, and explain why this is the case. Really couldn't find anything, honestly. Most of what I was finding was correlating to velocities. A lot of people, when you put in barrel twist rate, pistol barrel twist rate versus barrel length, pistol barrel length, correlation to barrel twist rate, find everything a lot of 1 in 10. Even on some pistol caliber carbines, I looked in those, AR9s, a lot of 1 in 10. 1 in 10 gives a lot of variation in your bullet weight for round stabilization. And a lot of your barrel velocities that are out there on different charts on Google Images, Facts and Firearms had a really good one. US Shooting Sports had one. I'll put them a couple links at the very end of the video. Barrel velocity changed depending on the barrel. Some barrels were shorter that ran better. Some barrels were longer that had better velocities. But one thing I think people don't take into account when they're doing some of these studies is the round count on the firearms, the wear of the barrel, making sure they're using the same ammunition across all, making sure the same model firearms, make sure the barrels are made the exact same. There's too many factors that can play into giving you incorrect and inconsistent study results. There's not a very good control. But different powders burn at different rates. So understanding what, especially if you're a reloader, knowing those powders is more. If you're just walking in and buying Hornady, a Winchester, Remington, Wolf, whatever ammo, knowing if it's a fast burning, slow burning, what exact powder is in there, it's a little hard. And a lot of times the manufacturers just don't want to give you that information out there. So you really can just load, development, test, buy boxed ammo, run it through your firearms, see what works, see what groups, see what's accurate, and use a grain weight that is going to correlate to that barrel twist rate. And that comes really into play a lot of times on rifles. I shoot PRS, so that is one thing that I'm constantly looking at is what's my barrel rate versus what the grain weight of the bullet I'm running, and a whole lot of other factors. So didn't find a whole lot of stuff out there for that. Shorter barrels needing different twist rate than longer barrels. Springfield's 1 in 10, SIG's 1 in 10, PSA daggers are 1 in 10 for all their barrels. 1 in 10 seems to be the very common, just standard across the board for a 9mm platform.